Joe Rogan has done a 180 on UFOs and aliens. What am I talking about? Let's jump in. Hi, Vetters. It's Patrick. Let's get going. So, David Grusch on a recent podcast with Duncan Trussell said that he thinks the slow bureaucratic process of UFO disclosure, all the pushback, and David Grusch now mentioning that he has firsthand knowledge is changing his mind. He's starting to think, yeah, maybe there is something to this. Now, you might be asking yourself, hasn't Joe Rogan always been on board with this? No. Recently, he's been very wish-washy about it, even saying things about David Grusch after he had him on his podcast. So, what we're going to do in this video is take a look at his comments he recently just made, okay, and then work our way backwards. So, I'm going to show you 3 clips. One of him, again, the most recent one. The second one is going to be David Grusch mentioning firsthand knowledge on his own podcast, on Joe Rogan's own podcast, which Joe Rogan apparently missed in the moment, wasn't aware that he said it. And then him also talking with another guest that he had on, kind of not bad-mouthing David Grusch, but kind of saying he could be a useful idiot, right? So he's kind of been wish-washy with it. But I think he's back, y'all. So let's jump in and take a look at these clips. If you haven't already, hit that like button, y'all. That really helps us out a lot. And, of course, comment down below of what you think of Joe Rogan and how important do you actually think Joe Rogan is for UFO disclosure. I personally think is huge. He has one of the biggest platforms on the planet. So for him to be behind it and support it would be massive, right? I mean, let's be real. That David Grusch interview he did, I guarantee you that will become his most watched interview. All right, let's jump in. Let's see here. First, let's watch the Reddit post. It's right here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
If he does have firsthand knowledge, he's not allowed to say it until now. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was also under the impression he didn't have firsthand knowledge. So he did, I guess, on the podcast say that he has some firsthand knowledge. Maybe I didn't catch that.
So here is that real quick. Hang on. This is David Grusch on Joe Rogan.
Do you know I took those people, a lot of them, and I brought them to the Intelligence Community Inspector General when I filed my complaint, because I don't want people to, hear it from a secondhand source. People call it hearsay, whatever. Though I have some firsthand knowledge, I eventually talk about someday. I'm trying to get it cleared, but through security processes.
So Joe Rogan missed that in the moment. And look, I've podcasted, done hundreds of interviews. It happens. You just miss things in the moment, and it's going to happen. But I believe that was the first time that's not the first time David Grusch had mentioned it, but it was on the biggest platform that he had mentioned it. And yeah, so there it is. There he is talking about it. Let's continue this clip.
Say it very quick.
Yeah, I said it very quick.
You know what? Edging. What edging is, of course.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like. It feels like BDSM level, getting your cock right on the precipice of coming. And
apologize for this conversation, y'all. It's Joe Rogan. So it is what it is.
And slowing down and then edging and then slowing down. Mm-hmm. It's so frustrating. When we talked about disclosure in the old days, the dream of disclosure, no one thought it would be this
slow drip,
bureaucratic,
right?
Slow fucking drip. It's so frustrating. I don't pay attention to it anymore. I mean,
But isn't that, if you knew anything about human psychology, and I'm sure they do, wouldn't that be the very best way to release this stuff?
Yeah.
To make it irrelevant?
Yeah.
That people don't care about it anymore because it's so boring?
Totally.
They made the most exciting thing boring.
They fucking ruined it.
They did it with bureaucracy.
They just fucking they just signal jammed it. Now it's just annoying. You
now
don't
I'm
care.
back in. Now I think it's real.
You do?
Because I think that's what they would do. If you did have something real and you wanted to release it.
Slow drip.
Yeah, slow drip it and people are goofy. You just give them time and they forget or they don't care anymore.
Talk about your redactions and your fucking permissions and just just cover the whole thing up in a bureaucratic web
how I would
of
do it.
linguistic garbage.
Yeah.
And then people just get annoyed. And when they do show up, no one's even going to care anymore.
Wouldn't you do it that way?
I guess.
Interesting conversation there, right? Let's. I got one more clip to show you. Give me just a second. I honestly love that portion of it. Right, he's back in, thinks it's real, and this slow drip. Like this is again. That's what he says. Like if it was real and you were trying to, keep it secret, these are the things you would do, right? And that does seem very sketchy and fishy, right? And that's kind of why he's back in, because he just sees something odd. Again, it is odd, right? Again, we keep saying, hey, right, we think there's something, and the government, parts of the government will just push back, well, and they just put all this red tape, and at the same time say there's nothing here. This is a joke, right? But why not just show? Right? Again, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that David Grusch would investigate for years behind the scenes. And if this was all BS, why no one would have pulled him aside and said, listen, this is what is going on, blah, blah, blah. This is, you think it's but they don't. Is really our government working against each other within? I doubt it. There's just too many people, right? It doesn't make any sense. Right? If there's nothing there, why put up all the roadblocks and the red tape? Again, someone would have been pulled aside privately and told the truth, hey, it's our advanced tech, just cool it, blah, blah, blah. But they're not. And all this does is bring all the attention on the U.S., right, in a lot of ways. So, it's so strange. It's just so strange the way our government and other governments react to it, especially our government. It's just so strange. And that's what makes people pause. Normal people who don't necessarily even have to be into all of it. Just know that there's some UFOs and UAP and, okay, what's all this going on? But, okay, well, they said look at it. Why aren't you looking at it? What's the problem? Okay, you know what I mean? What's going on? So this slow drip to just get you used to it. Honestly, I mean, that does make a lot of sense, right? Generationally, it just gets accepted a little bit more. And then when you do say, yeah, this is real, a lot of people go, yeah, I knew it. Right? And it's not as difficult to get over. Right? But I don't know. It's very interesting. I agree with Joe Rogan here and what he's saying. And I agree. I understand Duncan Trussell's frustrations. Right? He's like, I don't even follow it anymore. I get that, right? I mean, look, I do vet it. I have to put out a video every day, but I can understand that frustration. I've seen it in the comments from other people. I've had it myself. Who hasn't in this? Right? It's like some days you feel like you're taking 2 steps back. Other days you feel like you're taking a step forward, right? And it's just like, and there's just so many stories, so many people. It's so dense, right? There's so many aspects to this. I got a comment from the video I put up yesterday. And someone said, great show, love it. I just wish Patrick was more informed. It's like, I understand what they say, because a lot of people use their own basis of knowledge on what the standard is and where do you fall within their knowledge base, right? How much do you know based on what they know? And then they think you know a little or a lot about the subject, right? But let's be real. There's not one person that knows everything. There just isn't. You can have a lot of people that know a lot of things, but even they would be new to things. And that's part of what this show is learning a lot of this stuff and going through it. Yeah, I don't know everything. Some of ththese new things, new people that I learn about, yes, because there's just, every day there's someone new to learn about. Right? I can't just absorb it all in one day. It's just impossible. And again, anyone telling you that they know it all is just, they don't. They don't know everything, every story. So many people haven't even come forward. How do you know them? Right? So, but I understand the frustration of all the drips and all the it's comings and down the road in 2024 and this date and that, I get it. right? The trust me bros. Like, it's totally understandable to be frustrated with where we're at. But it's also, you know, you can also say, well, let's look at the good things, right? Let's look at the good things of what's happening, right? In the sense that in some ways you could argue it's good to know that, okay, they're fighting back. There's something there, right? Now we know. We know there's something in the sense that why are they fighting it, right? There's got to be something there. You've got all these whistleblowers, right? David Grusch, right? I mean, we've got the UAP legislation signed into the NDAA. Regardless of what you think about it, it is a step forward in the right direction, right? It is monumental legislation, y'all. It really is at the end of the day. Yes, it wasn't everything you wanted, but that's politics. Just about everything that gets passed in politics gets gutted. And it's always a skeleton version of what it, originally was meant to be. It's just because you ask for everything and hope to get some of it. That's just politics. So again, we just keep pushing year after year. We are further down this than we've ever been, right? We had the first congressional hearing about it, like publicly with whistleblowers talking and saying these things, right? And this legislation. These are huge things. And then outside of that, you just have all these different UFO researchers, right? Documentarians who have all of their own stories and things that are going on. And that's what's hard to keep track of. All the people with books and experiences, and because they just don't all match up, right? Like the Chris Bledsoe thing that I put up yesterday. I mean, what he's talking about is just this whole spiritual thing. How is that connected to time-traveling interdimensional ultra-terrestrials or ET? Extraterrestrials coming from another planet. It's just, there's a lot to take in. So I can understand the frustration, right? And again, I'm sorry, but there still is no smoking gun evidence available. There isn't. There's a lot of stories. A lot of people telling you things. And yeah, there's some interesting videos and whatnot, but there's just a lot of stories. That's all they are. So look, let's take a look at what Joe Rogan said after he had him on his podcast with another guest, because that's where Joe Rogan was before. And I think a lot of people are still there. So let's take a look at that, end on that. And let's see here. Let's just go with it.
Joe Rogan Experience.
So you were saying that you're on the fence, off the fence about Grusch.
The story I was hearing is it's a lot. I'm going to skip a lot of it, but what I was reading and / what they were saying is that one possibility that could be going on is there is I think we're taking in some of Graham Hancock stuff too. If people were around on Earth 500,000 years ago, in some way, there was some split and a second set of humans continued on, and we're like in this interdimension space where they're both happening simultaneously, and that's where if
he was saying this?
No. This is I'm gathering this all from that video. I'm adding in some of Graham Hancock stuff too because this kid also interviewed him, Jesse Michaels, on his podcast.
Okay.
And they're talking about some of the same stuff, but something they said in the Grusch interview on his podcast was that an idea would be that these people exist on a split timeline from us. Like we had cataclysms and died and repopulated and whatnot. Now we've ended in this place in 2023 with combustion engines and we're flying around. These people would have been in a different anti-gravity.
I think this is a perfect example. Look at Joe Rogan's face as he's listening to all this. That is a perfect example of how people get lost on this topic, right? Again, one thing is to say, look, we've recovered craft and I think we got some aliens, right? When we're reverse engineering the technology. Okay. That's one thing to wrap your head around, right? And kind of easily to wrap your head around, to be honest with you. Yes, okay, ET, okay, that's mind-blowing. Yeah, we're not alone. Okay, but then you start to get into this other theories of exactly these entities or beings' origins. And that speculation and theorizing, which, mind you, I'm all for it. I love it. I do it all the time with my friends. It's really fun, right? Because we don't have a definitive answer. So you start to wonder, what are these things, right? But those conversations, that's what confuses people. And that's what makes people go, okay, come on, this is all BS, right? So I think that is kind of, that is kind of where we need to start with people, right? And getting people to just accept that fact that we have craft, they're being reverse engineered, we might have some bodies or whatever. Like just that. Not really start talking about all the rest of it, because that is just what loses people. Again, it's fun to talk about, but I'm just saying, look at Joe Rogan's face. He's just like, what? And always trying to, like, when you try to repeat it back to somebody else, right? And it just comes out all wrong. And you're just flipping all over the place, well, they're used to live, they split, and now they're coming from, and somebody's looking at you like, what are you talking about, right? Again, you just have so many different theories and what it is coming from people. It makes it difficult, dude, to really jump on board, like with certain things, right? Your BS meter just starts going off. And then people say, well, it's just because you're not used to this, so it mind blows, and your mind gets blown, and it's hard for you to accept anything outside your normal reference, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get that, but intuition, but it also would be crazy for me to just jump off the deep end and just start accepting everything without any sort of evidence or proof. Like, where do I start? How do I stop that? What kind of sandbox is that? If you just say, well, I'm just going to accept things without evidence or proof, right? If you miss out on some things because you weren't willing to just accept it on faith and you needed evidence or proof, at least you're in this sandbox that has a, pretty firm line around it. Whereas opposed to when you jump into, well, I'll just start accepting people's stories. They seem credible. Few people said the multiple thing, let me just start believing these things and tucking that away in the facts part of my brain. Objective truths, that becomes wishy-washy. Those lines around the borders are, become odd. I hope I'm making sense here, right? Like, it's just like the standards of proof that we have. If we just keep pushing that goalpost, it just becomes more difficult to really create this sort of baseline of fact and truth, because that is what this subject is missing. What are the basic facts and truth? I personally have just put David Grusch and his claims at the center of where I'm at personally, because I just am trying to push everything else to the side and just focus on that. Everything else is for fun, but that's my main focus, and that's my main follow-up. Because it's hard to follow up with all these other people and their claims, because they're just stories, and it's hard to call somebody a liar, right? They're just out selling a book, or they got a documentary or whatever. Okay, well, we got people testifying, Congress, government, UAP legislation, Congress, right? That's where I'm focused. I'm just focused on those stories. I'm really focused on David Grusch, his witnesses, his testimony, what he says. I can't wait for his op-ed, and that's it. Because it's just so hard to keep up with all this stuff, because, again, look at Joe Rogan's face. That is the face of many. Right there, just totally confused. What are you saying? Time travel? We're what? Right? It's just like, how far do we go? Right now, there's this whole spiritual thing coming out. Well, if we tell people, right, that I see all these things floating around, y'all, it's scaring me. Like, we're a farm. These beings eat us. We're just here. We're like chickens, cows. They're just feeding off of us. Like, what are we? What? I mean, I'm sorry, I have seen zero evidence for that. That is just stories. Again, I don't know, man. It just becomes difficult. So, let's continue.
Knows what they figured out.
And they went somewhere else?
They're not even saying that. This is where, like, they're not going to talk. They haven't talked about that, but I think what they're saying or getting at maybe is that they're here, and that's why the nuclear thing is so important to them. they're on the same planet as us, and if we blow up the planet, it goes away for them.
So they're
too.
here, we just don't know where they are.
And that's where the interdimension thing comes in. I that's what I'm gathering out of what I've
How
heard.
high were you when you came up with this theory?
It's not. I don't think I'm saying it's my theory. This is what they're sort of saying.
understand.
And Grusch is sort of like, that's an
Again, where does the spiritual and gods and, I mean, how does it all fit together? Like, we need to get all experiencers and people with all the stories in a room together so that they can discuss and look at each other, because their claims just don't overlap. It can't all be, they're all truthful, right? So what do? Do we really start holding people to the fire on what they're saying, or do we just take it in, make up your own mind? I don't know. I mean, freedom is messy, right? So in my opinion, you got to just let people say their stuff. And again, my focus is on David Grusch and that stuff, and programs we have, the craft we recovered, reverse engineering. I'll get into the what they are later and really forming my opinion, because I don't know. I like hearing all the different theories and speculation. They're all interesting and scary and frightening and whatever. But yeah.
interesting thing you're saying. He's not confirming it with them or anything, but it's a lot to take in. That's definitely for sure.
Yeah, it's all a lot to take in. David Grusch is that UFO whistleblower that testified in front of Congress.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, man. The thing about it is, I believe he's telling the truth as far as what he's experienced and the documents that he uncovered and the people that he talked to. But how do you know whether or not they're just using him as a useful idiot to just get out some silly story because they're covering up for the fact that there's some very advanced drone system that the United States government has they're trying to keep under wraps?
Right.
Again, that theory just doesn't hold water to me, right? If it was some advanced drone system that we had, they would have approached Grusch almost immediately and said, hey, man, he was already read into super top secret shit and stuff and already knew about advanced weapons that we have. There would have been some meeting to say, hey, this is our stuff. It's advanced. We can't tell you more about it. He would have accepted immediately. He was a Boy Scout. He would have accepted that immediately. So why would we cover up our own advanced tech with this obviously crazy idea of creating aliens? And I mean, that just sounds so much work. It would be so much easier to not do that, to just keep our advanced tech secret in a just normal way. Not this whole psyop. I just don't buy that, right? It just doesn't make sense. That idea, again, I don't buy that. It's too many people. They would have had conversations with people and said, look, dude, this is what's going on, and nobody ever did that, right? They just pushed back the red tape. You're crazy for saying this,
It might be
Tough
both.
to know.
I think
It's like nobody offered David Grusch the alternative truth. They just tell you you're crazy, you're wrong, but they don't say it's this, right? So they don't give you this out. And they would have done that, in my opinion. I mean, anyway.
it's probably both things. Well, here's the thing. You're out in the woods all the time. You ever see a UFO?
No.
Ever see Bigfoot?
No.
Ever talked to a hunter that's seen a UFO?
No.
Ever talked to a hunter that's seen Bigfoot?
I talked to
Really?
the guys down at San Carlos, the Apache Reservation.
Yeah.
They said they've seen stuff.
Okay. Were they on peyote?
I don't know.
Because I know a lot of those Indians like to get down.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't. And it's been
Did
like
they just-
multiple times.
What kind of stuff?
Like square, like something square flying.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because that is the thing that they describe, right? It's a square with a sphere inside of it, like a black. No, the opposite.
Yeah.
A sphere with a black square
Yeah,
inside
like
of it.
a force
Yeah.
field or
I
something.
always fucked that
Yeah.
up.
So that's.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody other than that. That's a.
So it's kind of interesting, right? Joe's trying to make this point, and that guy's like, well, I kind of have seen some stuff, right? So look, I'm going to end the clip there. I'm going to put links to all this stuff so you guys can check it all out for yourself. But, right, that's the thing, man. It's like so many people have had experiences. So many people have talked about seeing things. So many people. It's just crazy. right? So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I can't wait to read them. I'm curious what everyone's going to say. Again, Joe Rogan is hit or miss with a lot of people, but again, the benefit of having him want to help do more interviews, bring this out, the fact that he's seeing this in front, again, why put up all the roadblocks? Why do that? Right? David Grusch's op-ed about his firsthand knowledge, that's going to shake us. So I can't wait for that to come out. Of course, we're going to make a video as soon as it does. So anyway, look, for those of you still watching at this point, I said I was going to do a Chris Bledsoe episode today. I am pushing that to just later in the week. I thought this was more important. I have a special video about David Grusch coming out tomorrow, and then I'll do the Bledsoe episode. So anyway, the Ryan Bledsoe, Chris Bledsoe's son. So anyway, all right, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. Vetters, thank y'all again for all the support, all the new subscribers, y'all, hundreds of y'all. Thank y'all so much for jumping in. Again, we put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Always put down in the comments if you have an idea for a video. I'm not saying I'll do it, but I do get ideas from the comments. So, y'all leave great comments. What am I going to say? So, again, thank y'all again for supporting and watching. I do appreciate it. Hope y'all are having a good rest of the year here as we round out 2023. So, of course. All right, y'all. See you guys tomorrow. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Later, Vetters. Peace.